Hey there, folks. Scottsdale Travel Chick Sidekick here to present our ultimate visitor guide to the Big Island of Hawaii. In this video, we'll cover all the top things you'll want to see and do, along with details of how to get around, where to stay, the best times to visit, and all the top sites called out on maps so you'll know where everything is once you get there. And we'll throw in a few pro tips too, just to make you feel special. You're not going to see a better guide on the Big Island than this, I guarantee it. So sit back, grab some popcorn, and let's get into it. First up, just a bit of background on the Big Island of Hawaii. The Big Island is, of course, the largest of the Hawaiian Islands, and it's bigger than all the other Hawaiian islands combined. And it's still growing, thanks to Kilauea Volcano on the east coast of the island. Another fun fact, the Big Island is officially called the Island of Hawaii, but since most tourists think of the overall island chain as Hawaii, the biggest of the islands is typically referred to simply as the Big Island. Although it's big, it has the least population density of any of the islands. Here, there's a total population of less than 200,000 people spread out across the entire island. The biggest town is actually Hilo on the less visited east coast, with a population of just 45,000 people. And the next biggest town is Kona on the west coast, with a population of less than 20,000. Another key point to the Big Island is that each side of the island is pretty distinct. The eastern half of the island has lush rainforests, multiple famous waterfalls, the best hikes on the island, as well as the very popular Hawaii Volcanoes National Park. While the western side of the island has more sun, but is also much more barren, with large expanses of flat lava fields everywhere, but with some absolutely beautiful beaches thrown in along the coast. Taken as a whole, though, if you like adventure and getting outside in the great outdoors, in addition to lazing around on some gorgeous beaches, then this island is for you. How to get there and how to get around. Unlike the other Hawaiian islands, the Big Island actually has two international airports. The Kona International Airport on the west coast, and the Hilo International Airport on the east coast. The vast majority of tourists arrive to the Kona Airport on the west coast. But our pro tip is to not forget about the Hilo Airport. There are multiple direct flights from the U.S. mainland to Hilo, and flying into one airport and out of the other is a really great way to more easily explore the entirety of the Big Island. Once you've arrived, how best to get around? Well, there's really only one answer. You need to rent a car. There's really no way to experience all the Big Island has to offer without driving it. And they don't call it the Big Island for nothing. In general, driving between the east and west coasts takes about 2 hours, and driving to the Hawaii Volcanoes National Park from the more popular West Coast resort areas will also take you about 2 hours. So, be prepared. There will be a lot of driving if you want to see all the Big Island has to offer. What about the best times to visit the Big Island? Well, just like the rest of Hawaii, the weather is warm and pleasant year-round, with highs typically in the 80s and lows in the 70s. So there's really no true bad time to visit. But if we were forced to pick the best months, we'd say visit in April and May or September or October. As these periods have fewer tourists, the weather is still great, and it's just a bit less expensive during these slightly off-peak times. And if you're curious about the ocean temperatures, it's always about 75 to 80 degrees Fahrenheit year-round, so you can swim comfortably either in July or January. Now, let's talk just a little bit about where to stay. There are really three main areas to consider on the Big Island. The west coast or leeward side has two, the Kona or Kailua area and the Waikoloa area further north. Almost all the major tourist hotels are on this side of the island, and you'll pay top dollar for the privilege of staying here. Kona is the primary town on this side of the island, but it's still a very small, charming, and idyllic experience staying in this area. Here, you'll find mostly smaller, homey lodging options, at least compared to the Waikoloa area further north. The Waikoloa area and the Kahala coast are where the big dogs run. Here is where you'll find some of the most expensive resorts in all of Hawaii, along with multiple larger master plan communities and high-end golf courses. If you're curious about one of the most famous options, check out our separate video review of the Hilton Waikoloa Resort. The third area to consider staying is Hilo on the eastern side of the island. Although a bit wetter, this area does have its advantages. And to be honest, we actually prefer this side the best. First up, it's much less expensive to stay on this side of the island, perhaps half the price or less compared to the Kona coast. And you're much closer to many of the Big Island's best attractions, such as the Volcano National Park and the popular Akaka Falls. Finally, you'll simply get a more authentic experience of the real Hawaii on this side of the island. If you do decide to stay on this side, just note though, there are no big resorts here. The closest option you'll have to a resort will be the Hilton Doubletree Grand Nanaloa, which is a relatively quaint, old-school experience. Nonetheless, we do really like this place, and if you want to learn more about that property, check out our dedicated review of it. Just search Hilo Doubletree. Okay, with all that out of the way, let's get to all the top things you'll want to see and do on the Big Island of Hawaii. And when I say all, I'm going to give you tons of ideas here, more than any other travel guide you'll watch, I guarantee it. And I'll group everything into two main east and west areas, which you can consider independently. However, there's a lot to cover on the Big Island. So, if you don't have at least a week or more to see everything I'll talk about, you'll certainly need to pick and choose among all the choices. First up are the sites along the Kona coast or the west side of the island. I start on this side as most tourists base themselves on this side of the island. And I'll cover the sites from north to south as you might do on your own day trip. But again, be aware there are too many sites, even just on this side, to see in one day. First up, on the north end of the island, is the Kohala Coast and Pololu Valley. Pololu Valley is at the very end of the road, and the primary site here is simply the drive out and the view from the Pololu Valley Lookout. If you have a bit of energy once you get here, you can also do the short but steep 0.6 mile or 20-minute hike down to a beautiful black sand beach surrounded by 500-foot cliffs. It's one of the best short hikes on the island. And note that this hike to the beach is just the first part of a more extensive trail you can hike into the adjacent valley if you're up for the challenge. The next site moving south from Pololu Valley is the small town of Kapa'u and its famous King Kamehameha statue. It's one of two identical Kamehameha statues, with the other being in front of the Hawaii State Courthouse in downtown Honolulu. Be sure to check out the interesting story on this one, which was recovered from the bottom of the ocean. Next up is the Lapaka'i Historical Fishing Village. This park has a very nice 1-mile loop hike through the remains of a partially restored Hawaiian fishing village dating back more than 600 years. There's some very beautiful coastline to take in, as well as some interesting history here. And it's not well known, but we'd really recommend a stop here, particularly if you have kids. Continuing with the history theme, the Pu'u Kohala Heiau site is next. It's one of the largest and the last sacred Hawaiian heiau built prior to Western influence, and it has a very nice visitor center here covering quite a bit of Hawaiian history, along with a short, interesting movie you can watch. And pro tip, just below this site is Spencer's Beach. With shade trees, white sand, calm waters, and good snorkeling, this is a hidden gem few people know about. Next up is famous Hapuna Beach. It's the largest white sand beach on the island, and it's also one of the most popular. There are entry and parking fees here of $5 and $10 respectively, but you'll get a small cafe with food and drink, plenty of soft sand, good swimming or surfing when the water is more rough, and even some nice snorkeling to the south. And there's a piece of the Alakahake coastal trail which runs from the north side of this beach up to Moana Kea Beach, which is another beauty worth checking out. Next up, heading south, is the large master plan community of Waikoloa. Here you have the massive Hilton Resort, along with a Marriott and tons of timeshare VRBO properties. In addition to the Hilton's private lagoon and Dolphin Quest, where you can swim with dolphins, there's another short hike here we'd recommend. It's the Waikoloa Petroglyph Reserve Hike, or King Mamalahoa Petroglyphs Trail. It's an easy hike and has one of the best preserved petroglyph sites on the island. Continuing down the Kona coast, you'll next come to Kiholo Bay. This is a great place that few people visit. A nature conservatory manages the area where you can take a short hike to the bay, which has a small black sand beach, a freshwater bathing cave, and a man-made water channel to a very large 2-mile-long 1800s Hawaiian fishing pond. Bonus here, the fish pond is largely reconstructed and you are bound to see some turtles. Maniniawali Beach and Kua Bay are next. This is another mile-long white sand beauty that tends to be less visited than most. So if you're looking for a great beach with less people, this should be one of your top choices. Continuing down the coast, we now come to another popular site, Kikaha Kai State Park. It's a free park and is one of the better sites on this side of the island. Plus, it's a twofer, as there's a nice hike to the north to Makalawena Beach. This one is a little bit longer at 2.5 miles round trip, and you'll hike past some older ruins in a really cool little palm oasis. Then across an expansive lava field through some unique sand dunes to finally reach that secluded and beautiful Makalawana Beach. Okay, let's stop with the beaches for a bit, huh? Next up is a secret lava tube. But this really shouldn't be secret, as it's right on the main road, Route 19, and it's just north of the airport. There are a couple of small nondescript signs here, but thousands go by it every day without thinking twice. However, we recommend you take a quick stop here and check it out, particularly if you don't have time to do the more impressive Kamana caves on the other side of the island. So this is the lava tube. You might be able to see a little bit of light at the other end. So it actually goes out to the other side. At this point, you'll now be passing the airport and you'll next come to the Kaloko Honoko'a National Historic Park. This 12,000-acre park has a visitor center to explore and some interesting Hawaiian history with petroglyphs and multiple heiau. Make it to the beach to also see some of the historic fish ponds and a traditional thatched roof building. And I can almost guarantee you'll see turtles here. I know I say that a lot, but I would say this beach is probably the best on the island for routine turtle sightings. If you look closely, you can count 6 turtles floating in the water here. Next up, you'll come to the biggest town on this side of the island, Kona. Once you visit, you'll see what I mean by big, as in not very. The main area along the ocean has a quaint little village feel with some great local dining and shopping options, as well as 2 historic sites to see. Moku I Kawa, I think, Church is one of them. This is Hawaii's oldest Christian church, founded back in 1820, and it's free to visit. Hulihehe's Palace is another one, and it's one of only 3 royal homes in the United States. Built in 1838, this was a vacation spot for many of Hawaii's royalty. Today it's a museum showcasing Victorian-era artifacts with a $6 admission. In this area around Kona, you'll also have a number of farm tour options. I'm not going to mention all of them here as there's too many, but let me just quickly say there are at least 3 coffee plantation tours, as well as a sea salt farm, a bee farm, and even an octopus farm. Take your pick and enjoy. Moving further south, you'll come to 3 more popular beaches. First up is Kahalu'u Beach. This is a wide protected bay just a few miles south of Kona town and offers some of the island's best and most easily accessible snorkeling. The next beach is a famous one, but not an easy one to get to, Captain Cook Bay and Monument. This area is a protected marine conservation zone where you'll have only 2 options to get there. One is a somewhat strenuous 4-mile round-trip hike, and the other is to hire a boat company to take you there. We'd recommend the boat option. And note that this is one of the most popular tours on the island. So check out our links below the video if you want to see a couple of our recommendations on the best providers. The third beach here is another big one, Honanao Bay and 2-Step Beach. Be aware that this one's quite popular, so it's almost always crowded. And I use the word beach literally for this one, as it's largely just lava rocks everywhere. But it's another great snorkeling area, and it's quite convenient for those staying in the Kona area. And right next door is Pu'uhonau o Honaunau, National Historic Park. But unlike many of the parks here, this one has an admission fee of $20 per vehicle. Here you can take a self-guided walk and hike another portion of that ancient Hawaiian coastal path I've mentioned. After this site, there aren't any more notable sites until you get to the very bottom of the island. So, you can either turn around and call it a day, or you can drive another 1 to 1.5 hours to see 3 more popular sites at the very bottom of the Kona coast. Some people try to cram these into a day trip to Hawaii Volcanoes National Park, or with some of the sites I've already mentioned. But honestly, our recommendation is to group these 3 sites as a separate day trip just to the south part of the island. South Point here is the southernmost point on the island and the southernmost point in all of the United States. To get there, it's a 12-mile or 20-minute drive off the ring road to a wind-swept plateau sitting on cliffs above the ocean. Fun fact, this South Point area is thought to be the landing place of Hawaii's first inhabitants. Of course, there are incredible views here and an ancient heiau to explore, but one of the most popular things to do here is a daring cliff jump. I came down here just to do this, but the ocean was a little bit too rough and no one was making the jump on the day I went there. How about you? Would you do this jump? Also down this road to South Point is one of the most famous beaches on the island, Papakolea Green Sand Beach. It's one of the most Instagram popular beaches in Hawaii, but it's not easy to get to. It's either a 5-mile round-trip hike, or you pay a local $25 for them to take you down in the back of their truck. Honestly, I'd say this is overrated, but a lot of people do it, as it's one of only 4 green sand beaches in the world. Finally, the last site on the Kona side of the island, and the third site in this area, is another popular trendy beach, Punalulu's Black Sand Beach. It's another 15 miles or 25 minutes past the turnoff to South Point, and it's said to be the best black sand beach in Hawaii. So I guess it's a must-see. But swimming here isn't easy, and this place tends to be crowded. If you want to just take a quick peek here at this beach and not do any of the South Point sites, it is possible to do this on your way from Kona to the Hawaii Volcanoes National Park. Phew! With that, I have finished all the top sites on the Kona coast or west side of the island. And now we're off to the other side of the island and a couple of top sites in the middle. But before I get there, just a quick shout out to say if you're enjoying this video, please give us a thumbs up, a comment too, or even better, forward this to some of your friends. And please consider subscribing to our channel to receive more fun, informative travel videos just like this one. And if you're interested in comparing the Big Island to other Hawaiian islands, be sure to check out our other top-rated ultimate guides to both Kauai and Oahu, as well as our top-rated day trip guide to Hawaii Volcanoes National Park and Pearl Harbor. Okay, onward we go. As I did on the West Coast, I'll cover all the top sites on the Hilo coast or the east side of the island, running from north to south. But before I get over there, let me just cover 2 big sites kind of in the middle of the island. One is Mauna Kea Volcano and Observatory. I'd say this is definitely one of the must-dos on the island, and it's only a 15-minute detour off the saddle road going between Kona and Hilo. It's possible to drive all the way up to the 13,800-foot summit if you have a 4x4, but our suggestion is to simply make it to the visitor center at around 10,000 feet and arrive just before sunset. Spend a little time checking out the little museum they have here, then head up the hill across the street to see one of the most incredible sunsets of your life. If you catch the day right, it will take your breath away. After sunset, wait around a little bit and then do some stargazing with volunteers who show up here every evening. The other big site around the center of the island is the biggest attraction of them all on the Big Island. It's Hawaii's Volcano National Park. And really it's more a part of the Hilo side of the island, but I put it here separately as it absolutely deserves a full day of your time, if not more. This is often the main reason people come to the Big Island, and you won't find something like this anywhere else in the world. The bad news, though, is that I'm not going to cover it in detail here. But the good news is we have a top-rated day trip guide to the Hawaii Volcanoes National Park. Check that out to learn everything you need to know about doing the perfect day trip to the park. And just for fun, here's a bonus pick from way back. Now, we're ready to cover the best sites on the Hilo or East Coast side of the island. With its biodiverse rainforests, rugged, untamed coasts, charming plantation towns, and the quaint Hilo, this side of the island is a great option for nature lovers looking to see a more lush and untouched Hawaii. Starting from the very north, we come to the Hamakua Coast and Waipio Valley. This area is famous for its rugged coastline, waterfalls, and stunning scenery, and the Waipio Valley at the very end of the road here is famous for being the boyhood home of King Kamehameha I. Today, it remains a lush valley surrounded by steep cliffs, home to cascading waterfalls, small local farms, and a rich history. It's not easy to get down into, but it is possible to take a tour of this valley with the right provider. Next up, moving south, is the small Mauna Kea tea farm. Here you can explore a green tea farm and experience a tea ceremony. Lots of Japanese and Zen feelings here. Check their website for booking details, and it's by appointment only. Next up is the Kalopa State Park. This is a little known park, but it has a really great hike here. Number one, you'll likely be the only ones there. And number two, it's a short, less than a mile loop hike and great for a family hike through a breezy rainforest at a 2,000-foot elevation. Moving further south, you'll come to Lapahoho Point. This is a very scenic spot with crashing waves and great views up the coast. But this site also has some tragic history related to a devastating tsunami in 1946. You can learn more about it on the placards around this park. After this, you'll next come to one of the biggies on this side of the island, Makaka Falls State Park. Here you have a short but beautiful rainforest loop hike through a small canyon and bamboo grove to a very nice waterfall. It's definitely worth a stop, but this one is not free. It's $5 per person and $10 per vehicle to park. Just check out our drone shot of this park. Wouldn't you want to hike here? Onomiya Scenic Drive is next, and this is a 4-mile detour along a rural historical road. The road takes you underneath jungle canopies, through old cane fields, passing waterfalls, crossing creeks, as well as local swimming holes. It's a really great treat in itself, and along the drive there are also two special sites worth considering. One is the Onomiya Trail or Donkey Trail. It's a short 15-minute hike through the lush rainforest and down along the coast past two bays. This one really is one of the best hikes on the island, in our opinion, so do consider giving it a stop. The other site here is the Hawaii Tropical Gardens. There is, unfortunately, a sizable $30 per person admission fee, so consider if it's worth it to explore a nature preserve with more than 2,000 different types of plants, flowers, and trees, along with the 3-tiered Onomiya Falls and a butterfly sanctuary. Next, you'll come to the biggest town on the Big Island, Hilo. Hilo started out as a farming and fishing village and quickly grew into a bustling town during the sugar plantation era of the 1800s. And the most appealing thing about Hilo, beyond its natural beauty on a great bay, is the surroundings of the town. Here you'll have choices of waterfalls, volcanic history, caves, rainforests, and more. Here are just some of the options within the town or within a short 5-minute drive away. Liliuokalani Gardens and the adjacent Coconut Island are directly in town and on the bay. Here you can visit a pleasant Japanese garden and picturesque bridge, see some absolutely huge banyan trees, and even do a small jump into the ocean if you're up for it. And every Wednesday and Saturday, Hilo has a farmer's market with not only fruits, vegetables, and local drinks, but also locally made knickknacks you can buy as souvenirs. If you're looking for some local history, both the Pacific Tsunami Museum and the Lyman Museum and Mission House are here too. Within a 5-minute drive of town, you also have 3 very family-friendly beaches to consider. You'll notice these are very different from the West Coast beaches I talked about earlier, but I think these are just as nice in their own way, particularly if you have kids. First up is the Onikahaha Beach Park. It's a mellow option with a protected ocean area and a depth of only 3 to 4 feet, along with a sandy bottom and an easy stepped entry. Next up after that are 2 more nice beaches right next to each other. Carl Smith Beach and then Richardson Beach. They are both great for just chilling out and relaxing, and Richardson has perhaps the best snorkeling on this side of the island. Just outside Hilo, in the nearby area, you have 3 more popular sites. Rainbow Falls and Boiling Pots are first. These 2 sites are within the Wailuku River State Park. Rainbow Falls is very easy to get to, as it's only 40 yards from the free parking lot, and it tends to display a rainbow in the mornings, hence its name. It's not a tall waterfall, but it does flow over a natural lava cave. Boiling Pots, or Pe'epe'e Falls, is just after Rainbow Falls, and this one is a series of smaller waterfalls which sometimes look like boiling pots of water when the flow is high. Kamana Lava Tube Cave is next. In our opinion, it's one of the best free things to do on this side of the island if you're up for some adventure. Here you can freely hike on your own through a large lava tube in 2 different directions. Be sure to bring a flashlight and don't just count on your cell phone here. And I'll mention another lava cave later if you'd prefer to have a guided tour. So we're at Kamana Caves. Scottsdale Travel Chick is going to go down here. This cave goes for about 3 miles left and right, and you're only limited by your daringness and the flashlight you have. It's not lit like the one at the Volcano National Park, so this is depending upon, again, what you have as a flashlight. You can see some people in here.
Everybody.
Finally, Mauna Loa Macadamia Nut Factory Tour is just south of Hilo. Here you can taste various flavors of nuts, learn how they are harvested and processed, and see their manufacturing process in action through some observation windows. We're going to look at this packing facility. Now, after all the Hilo sites, I'll group the last section here into what I will call the Puna Coast Drive. For perspective, just this portion of the East Coast will likely take you most of a day, so consider if you really want to combine this with something else or not. We recommend not. Anyway, along this drive, you'll see some of the most beautiful coast on the island, and the drive is an awesome experience all by itself. First up, as you drive south from Hilo, you'll come to that other lava cave I mentioned earlier. It's called Kilauea Caverns of Fire, and here you can book a tour with a guide. Check their website directly, as the tours need to be booked in advance. Next up will be the bohemian town of Pahoa. This small downtown still has its historic century-old plantation-era buildings, and it's worth a quick stop for a shave ice or a bite to eat. Fun fact, this town has the highest concentration of historic buildings in all of Hawaii. From Pahoa, you'll drive 15 minutes more and come to your first beach, Kaimu Black Sand Beach. This used to be one of the most beautiful black sand beaches in the world until a 1990 eruption covered the entire bay and surrounding area with lava up to 50 foot thick, while adding almost 1,000 acres of new land to the island. The new Kaimu Beach is an interesting site to explore. And while you're doing that, it's also interesting to think that for many people visiting, the land and the beach here are younger than they are. Kahena Black Sand Beach is next along the drive, but it's maybe not a stop for the kiddos, as this small black sand beach has long been known as a clothing optional beach. The Scottsdale Travel Chick seems to fancy checking this place out every time we visit. I wonder why. Moving further along the drive, you'll next come to a small pull-off area for La Halaland Beach. This is not really a beach, but it's a beautiful piece of the coast with flowing palm trees, and it's said to be one of the most photographed spots on the island. After La Halaland, you'll next come to Mackenzie State Park. Here you can experience some dramatic sea cliffs along a rugged piece of the coast. Watch the waves crash against the cliffs here and take a short but scenic hike to the south. Finally, at the very end of the road, you'll come to Pohoiki Bay and Hot Springs at Isaac Hale Park. This was at one time another nice black sand beach until another eruption, this time in 2018, covered the beach and all the land to the north. What is left today are some small hot springs, which are surprisingly the only public hot springs on the Big Island. This park is worth checking out, as well as the end of the road here. Just think, the road continued on from here for miles, but it's all now covered by lava 10 to 20 foot deep. When you take this road, you can see it dead ends in kind of a spectacular way, and you're not going to go any farther once you get to here. Well, this video is getting pretty long at this point, so I need to wind things down, but I'd be remiss if I didn't speak at least briefly on a couple of the top tours to consider while you're on the Big Island. Of course, the most popular tour here, and famous the world over, is the Manta Ray Night Tour. Who wouldn't want to go out in pitch black water and see 12-foot manta rays swim directly up into your face? We absolutely did this and we loved it. We really think it's worth it, and check out our links below on a recommended tour provider. Next up would be whale and dolphin watching tours. If you're visiting during the whale season, roughly from January through late March, then this is another great tour. There are many tour providers, but again, check our recommendations in the comments section below. Finally, the third top tour I'll mention is the Captain Cook Bay Tour I touched on earlier. This is another good one to a secluded snorkel bay, and it's quite popular. Plus, you'll very likely see whales on this tour too if you go between January and March. Well, there you have it, folks, our ultimate visitor guide to the Big Island of Hawaii. We hope you enjoyed. I certainly covered a lot, but did we miss any of your favorites? Or do you have a secret tip you'd like to share with others? Please let us know in the comments section below, and please consider subscribing to our channel for more fun, informative travel videos just like this one.
Until next time, see you later.